We've all seen someone like a Ned Stark who's righteous, honest, and honorable man, while also being akin to an impenetrable force like Superman. They're all depicted as that perfect character in their respective stories. Their likability and their ability to push the story further and keep us engaged is something they can all do very flawlessly. But while they do have that going for them, they aren't always good for storytelling. Their actions could be a little predictable as well. So today I'll be breaking down a character who I think applies the most to this problem. The main example we'll be using for this is Superman, and for iterations we'll mostly be using comic book Superman and Zack Snyder's iteration of Superman. Throughout the various amount of Superman comics, I usually see this same common mistake. When writers write the narrative for the Superman comics, the villains are usually bad because they don't create any mental conflict for Superman. Now, on the contrary, in Game of Thrones, we can see how Cersei presents this when she opposes Ned. She creates moral quandaries for Ned that makes him choose between honor and duty, which is the catalyst for the conflict in Season 1 of Game of Thrones. A flawless character needs to face a villain that can challenge their intellect. And Cersei does this flawlessly in Season 1. She pushes him and makes mistakes, which leads to his untimely death. On the contrary with Superman, Lex falls short in invoking mental conflict in Superman because he tries to challenge in his physical aspects with his kryptonite suit, and this leads into the repetitive cycle of Superman initially getting caught off guard by kryptonite and then adapting to Lex and defeating him. The big difference between a character like Batman in comparison to Superman is while Superman is perfect in almost every aspect, it's often hard for us as a reader to think that there's any possibility of him losing. Batman also has very good villains who can challenge his intelligence head on, and are often depicted to show Batman that he isn't always as smart as he thinks he is. Lex Luthor would be more interesting if he tested some moral boundary with Superman, like how the Joker in The Dark Knight made Batman choose between saving Two-Face and saving some dumb dimbo. Another example of this is also shown in The Dark Knight Rises, where Bane breaks Batman's back and Batman has to get his confidence back again. Even though the Joker is physically inferior to Batman, he still creates engaging conflict by deteriorating Batman's resolve. While Lex's conflict with Superman is predictable and fruitless because we know Superman is the pinnacle of physical might, and thus will never lose. I think with those statements, we should also go into examples of this being the case for Superman and Lex. So I'll be providing context for the examples I'll be showing you. This is around the time of DC Rebirth, and we've just found out that the original pre-52 Superman was never dead and survived Flashpoint. For anyone that doesn't know what Flashpoint is, it's an event in the DC timeline in which the Flash, Barry Allen, runs back in time to save his late mother, Nora Allen. And this results in him resetting the timeline, causing multiple changes such as Bruce Wayne's parents living and Bruce dying instead, for his father to become Batman and his mother to become the Joker. Superman is being held captive by the government in this timeline and is never discovered by the public, and the Atlanteans are at war with the Amazons. When Barry eventually runs back in time and fixes the timeline, he doesn't fully fix it, and it causes multiple damages in the timeline, but mostly brings back the original timeline. A few years later, after the New 52 run is over, DC brings back the original Wally West, and the New 52 Superman dies. Then bam, we have Rebirth. Most of the New 52 characters' pre-52 counterparts return. Hearing about Superman's death causes Lex to become the new Superman, so he's surprised when he learns that there's another Superman that's running about that looks oddly familiar to the New 52 Superman. And like I was saying earlier, he makes a big robotic Superman suit and doesn't attempt to outsmart Superman, but beat him in a one-on-one fight. Dumbest plan ever. Something similar happens in Superman Volume 1, Issue 292, where Lex makes a muscle decoordinating ray, yes, I didn't stutter, decoordinating ray, to defeat Superman, but it doesn't go his way, and he ends up blowing up Metropolis. These issues lead writers to create overpowered characters such as Doomsday to be the only thing capable of killing Superman besides kryptonite. It usually leads to lazy writing, and this is even worse when it translates to the cinema. Zack Snyder tries to fix this problem in Man of Steel and has good momentum with Zod's character arc as a villain, and makes us as an audience truly feel as if Superman is on the verge of defeat. But then, it all ends in this very unclimactic big bootleg Dragon Ball Z-esque battle. I'm not the only person to complain about this. Many other creators have expressed their problems with this as well. Two aspects that make a perfect character great in storytelling are 1. How well they are in contrast to the villain in their story, and 2. How relatable they are as a character. Without the villain aspects, this leads us to a very boring and repetitive story and causes stories to be very long. It'd be better to make these characters go through bullying, embarrassment, and some kind of suffering that will lead them to grow and develop as characters, while also having a meaningful impact with it not being forced. A good example of this is Spider-Man, who, from the time we meet him, gets embarrassed, pissed on, and treated like garbage. Then all these things develop him into an inspirational figure to the youth and world. They have to tackle these challenges in a realistic way, like any human would, which is also why Injustice is so good, but that's a video for another day. A character with no flaws often forces writers to kill them off with no solid narrative and connection to the audience. Superman's death in comparison to Ned's is vastly different. One has the good villain with the motivation behind it in Cersei, while on the contrary, the other has a villain who lacks motivation behind them and is flawless just like our hero. We can also say that Ned's death in comparison to Superman leads Cersei to face many consequences later on for allowing Joffrey to kill Ned. Tyrion even notes this in season 2 of Game of Thrones.
Done nothing.
Quite right, you did nothing. When your son called for Ned Stark's head. Now the entire North has risen up against us.
I tried to stop it.
Did you? You failed. That bit of theater will haunt our family for a generation.
Robb Stark is a child.
Who's won every battle he's fought? Do you understand we're losing the war?
What do you know about warfare?
Nothing. But I know people. And I know that our enemies hate each other almost as much as they hate us. And we have 2 of them.
One.
One?
Arya, little animal, she disappeared.
Disappeared? What? In a puff of smoke? We had 3 Starks to trade. You chopped one's head off and let another escape.
And he explains how the Stark family will be looking for revenge and win at all costs against the Lannister house. While Doomsday also does die along with Superman, Doomsday doesn't face any consequence whatsoever, and after the battle he literally comes back to life not even a whole 10 issues later. While Ned does have the flawless characteristics of a perfect character, if that's the right word, he also has these very great conflicts that stand in the way of him being depicted as that. And it makes his challenges harder when he has to go up against someone like Cersei, on the contrary of someone like Lex Luthor. If you like this video, I ask that you could please like and subscribe. Also, I'll be making a video like this on the flaws with current Marvel movies today, and I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Auden out.